In my first Pokemon TCG video, I talked about base set Charizard and how it actually, despite being a fan favorite, wasn't very good in game. Since then, I did want to make a revisit and actually show what a potential deck focused on Charizard could look like, restricted to only base set cards of course. To briefly go back, this is what worked on Charizard and what didn't work on Charizard. Now Charizard's attack Fire Spin needs 4 Fire Energy cards to do 100 damage, except you have to discard 2 energy cards. This means you have to spend 2 to 4 turns powering up Charizard, just discard 2 energy cards and have to spend another 2 turns, pending you don't get hit by a bunch of remove energy cards. But to make things easier, it's Pokemon Power, that's where Charizard's big strength is, which is called Energy Burn. It allows you to turn any energy attached to Charizard into a fire energy. This means you can put grass or water energy cards onto Charizard and it'll turn into a fire energy, which is really good, but you still have to spend 2 to 4 turns. And the reason why I say 2 to 4 turns is because what you can do is use 2 double colors energy cards on Charizard. Those 2 cards will provide Charizard with 4 energies, in which its ability Energy Burn will turn those into fire energies. Except the problem is that even if you do that, because its attack Fire Spin makes you discard 2 energy cards, not energies, you still lose both of them. That does allow Charizard to take, rather than 4 turns, 2 turns to power up, but there's still one more thing you can do to make it so Charizard only needs 1 turn to power up, and that's a mix of double colors energy card and an Electrode. Electrode has a really interesting Pokemon power called Buzz Zap, which allows you to knock out Electrode, but it turns it into an energy card of your choice attached to a Pokemon, and it counts as 2 of that energy. So what you would do is have Charizard up front, double colors energy card, just one of them, knock out Electrode, attach it to Charizard, and there you can do that 1 turn attack. As with all my other deck videos, this is not the deck list, this is just an example deck list. Go with what makes sense for you, especially with the trainer cards. The trainer cards is really what makes Pokemon go crazy. Also, I'm using Pokemon exclusive Clara sleeves. I never get the shieldies off, so I figure for Charizard might as well. I also have the deck box that comes with it. Pretty neat, but that's as far as that goes. To start off for Pokemon, obvious pick is going to be 4 Charmanders, 1 Charmeleon, 3 Charizards. I consider putting a 4th one in there, but I think that would be a little overwhelming. Plus, I don't have a 4th Charizard to put out. 4 Voltorbs. Very important, 4 Electrodes. And this is where I go off route with how base set decks normally were made. You would always put a Chansey in there, or almost always put a Chansey, because of its HP as a buffer in the front line as you build up your deck, or build up the card your deck is focused around. In this case, I'm actually not going to do Chansey. I'm actually putting in 3 Hitmonchans. A big difference there, I'll circle back why Hitmonchan, but I'm putting 3 instead of 3 Chanseys. For trainer cards, I'm running 2 Pokemon Breeders, 3 Pokemon Traders, 3 Computer Searches, 2 Lasses, 2 Pokemon Centers, 2 Professor Oaks, 4 energy removals, 2 switches, 2 gust of winds, and 3 bills. Remember, this is just what I thought of to use at this time. It's a hard mix. I might want to get rid of a Pokemon Center for maybe another Pokemon Breeder or another extra Pokemon Trader. If you make a deck like this, just try to build with what makes sense to you. For energy cards, putting down 4 double colors energy cards, very important to have them maxed out. And then I'm going to utilize not fire energies, but 12 fighting energies. Once again, this will make sense later, so bear with me on it. Now here's how you pull off the Charizard 1-turn KO. You want to have Charmander up front, or you can have Charmander in the back and Hitmonchan in the front. It doesn't matter too much, you just want to make sure that Charmander survives at least 1 turn. And not the same turn you play Charmander, because you can't evolve Pokemon on the same turn they're played. So you have that Charmander at least out in the field 1 turn in advance, as well as a Voltorb. And with that Voltorb, you also want to have another Voltorb if you can. You want to have at least 1 out prior. You of course want to use cards like Computer Search, Pokemon Trader, and important to have Pokemon Breeder in your hand. But you want to use these cards to get this combination out. as well as getting a few other things, such as the Pokemon Breeder turning Charmander into Charizard. And you want to make sure you can get one of the Voltorbs into an Electrode. From here on, all you have to do is attach one Double Colorless Energy card onto Charizard, and then use the Buzz Zap ability of Electrode to knock it out and attach it as 2 Fire Energies onto Charizard. And that's it. That's literally all there is. It's that simple. Now Charizard is able to do its attack Fire Spin in 1 turn, instead of having to attach 2 Double Colorless Energy cards over the course of 2 turns, or 4 of any energy card over the course of 4 turns. In just 1 turn, Double Colorless Energy card, Electrode, boom, Charizard can do Fire Spin, 100 attack, you knock out your opponent instantly in 1 turn. This is why it's important that you have a Voltorb on the field already, because the following turn, since you can't evolve a Pokemon you just played, you have to have that Voltorb already on field so you can evolve that into an Electrode and have another Double Colorless Energy card ready to attach to Charizard, which again, Computer Search becomes useful for it to get. And then once again, you can knock out Electrode, attach it to Charizard, and do another 100 damage attack the second turn. This, of course, I'm sure those who played the game, or at least the game back then, you would already see what the problem here is. Now, problem 1 is that in the Pokemon card game, you can only have 4 copies max of a single card, aside from basic energy cards in a deck. This means you can only have 4 Electrodes or 4 Double Colorless Energy cards in your deck, so Charizard can only do this ability 4 times. After that, I don't know what you're gonna do, because Charizard will now need to have 4 turns to power its attack up using regular energy cards. Of course, if your opponent only ever has 4 Pokemon in play, or could only ever get 4 Pokemon out in play, then congrats, you win just by complete knockout. That is why I put Hitmonchan in this deck with the fighting energy cards, because at least then, if you have Hitmonchan up front, you can put fighting energy cards attached to Hitmonchan and have that continue attacking your opponent, so you still have some feasible way of continuing the battle if you run out of Charizard doing its fire spins. Now the second problem with this deck, the second big problem, which is something I don't agree with personally, I think it's very silly, but that is just how the game is ruled, that's how the rules work, that's how the game is ruled. It comes down to Electrode's ability Buzz Zap. Now, in order to use this ability, you have to knock Electrode out, and that's the problem, you knock it out. That means that when this gets knocked out by its Pokemon power, your opponent gets a prize. Now I think that's silly because your opponent has to knock out your Pokemon to get a prize, but in this case, you're knocking out Electrode, they get the prize. That means every time you knock out Electrode, they get a prize, and every time you attach these 2 to Charizard and attack, hopefully you also get a prize. So that means that you and your opponent are going to be constantly 1-to-1 in terms of reaching all 6 prizes and winning the game. This means giving Charizard the advantage of being able to do Fire Spin every turn brings you and your opponent very close to a tie or a draw or whatever you want to call it, but it is going to be a very close match regardless, unless your opponent has less than 4 basic Pokemon on the field or can only field less than 4 in the whole entire game. Maybe they might get unlucky and only have 2 Pokemon out. I highly doubt it because of how Pokemon works with all the trainer cards, such as Pokemon Breeder. Well, not Breeder, but Breeder is helpful. But Pokemon Trader, Bill, and Professor Oak, it's not very likely your opponent will not have a basic Pokemon to put out before they lose the last one they have on the field. The only other issue is, of course, energy removal, which I never really talk about. But in this instance, on a deck like this, ideally your Charizard will have no energy cards on it at all, which is why Pokemon Center is great, because Pokemon Center removes all damage counters, or damage markers if you want to call them these days, off your Pokemon, but also removes all the energy cards attached to that Pokemon. But Charizard doesn't have energy cards on it because you used them all up, so free heals basically. But considering that the Double Colorless Energy card and Electro will be in your hand, or at least not on Charizard prior, means that energy removal cards hopefully will be not a problem for Charizard, as he won't have any energy cards on him. But there you go, that's it. If you want to make a Charizard a 1-turn KO Charizard deck, this is it. It is a really risky deck. As always, there's a lot of cards that you need to have to pull up the combo, but once you get you going, hopefully your opponent won't be able to supply their side of the field with basic Pokemon and keep up their bench before they get knocked out completely.